Good evening. So today you'll notice that we're not broadcasting in our regular 11 a.m. slots because we've got a bit of a special discussion, which means we're going to do things a little bit different and slightly longer than what we would have done on the Tuesday and Thursday slot. Obviously, yesterday the Finance Minister Tito Mboweni delivered his 2021 budget speech, which detailed how the National Treasury intends to navigate the current financial position of the country amid a global pandemic. Now, there are a couple of welcome decisions made, along with a few surprises, as always. Now, this evening, I'm joined by our panel of experts to get their opinion on the matter over the next few minutes. So please welcome Mr. Kut Kutsia, who is the CEO and founder of Wealth Masters Club.
Hello, Damien.
Hi, Kut. Lovely to have you with us today.
Yes, and hello to all the people watching.
With him, we also have Johannes Maria, who is the CEO of Destinati Capital.
Hi, everyone.
Johannes, thank you for joining us this evening. And finally, Cassie Henning, our senior wealth coach and tax expert. Cassie, thank you for joining us this evening as well.
Thanks, Damien. Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone.
Great stuff. So I'm going to jump straight into it. And Kut, the first question is for you. What were your initial thoughts and feelings on what was announced yesterday by the minister?
Disappointment, big time disappointment. If you take in consideration that our unemployment is the highest ever, then you would have thought that maybe the minister would do something, or let me rather put it this way, the minister is just a spokesperson. I would have thought that the government would have done something more to help us to create, us business people, to create more job opportunities for our citizens. So there are so many people who could have benefited a lot. So there was only one incentive for business actually that was the best one and the only one actually that the government actually ever started, and that was Section 12J. The only thing that worked was Section 12J, and they cancelled that one. It is unbelievable. But Johannes Maria, he is better on the 12J, so he could tell us a little bit later. But the disappointment from my side was huge.
Johannes, now speaking of that, there were obviously a couple of surprises announced yesterday. Besides 12J, was there anything else that was a surprise to you? Or was that the biggest one that sort of came out of yesterday's talk?
Obviously, the 12J was the very big surprise in that one. So I'm gonna speak about that first, actually, while we are on the topic. So Treasury took the view that they felt that not enough employment was created by the scheme. Something which I don't necessarily agree with, because I think the point that they missed was, yes, I know a large portion of the Section 12J industry invests heavily in the hospitality sector, and where many of those companies might not have direct employees on their own payrolls, there are many people that are being employed to serve those guests, to make the food, to clean the rooms, even the guys that do development, all the builders that build hotels. I think a lot of the statistics missed that point. And the other big thing for me where I think a big opportunity was missed is the fact that the sector hardest hit by this pandemic has been the hospitality sector, and Section 12J is and obviously now this was one of the critiques that was received by the industry, because they invested so heavily in the hospitality industry. That was one of the perfect mechanisms to recapitalize that sector. But nevertheless, I think the key thing, and I'll probably expand on that a little bit later in our chat. There is still time. I think the urgency is must be a bit more now. I think taxpayers need to realize it's not going to be around forever. So action needs to be taken swiftly if one is interested in that. Just moving along to the other things. Things that I was happy about was the fact that there was a lot of talk about potential tax hikes that were going to come in. That didn't materialize. I was very surprised about the corporate tax being dropped to 27%, down from 28%, which was interesting. And what was a positive for me is the fact that they're focusing a lot on plugging the gap in the budget through cutting down on the ballooning wage bill, the public wage bill. I'm not talking about the private sector. It's the public wage bill. I see they've budgeted for the following financial year to actually have a in nominal terms, decrease in the wage bill, which is huge, because if you adjust that by inflation, then you get to about a 5% reduction in expenditure on that, which is, if they manage to do it, it's going to be extremely impressive. It might be a bit hopeful, but if they do manage to pull that off, that will be a big positive. And what's good for me is the fact that they've shown a clear focus on trying to reduce that bill, because that is the major problem in our country, economic recovery. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, Johannes, I cannot see how it will actually, let me put it this way, not increasing it from the 45% for individuals that it is already at the moment for maximum income earners, not increasing it. I cannot see how that will help the economy and how it will help actually anybody. If this is way too high as it is at the moment anyways. So yes, so that is not going to solve any problems in the country. Well, we are thankful that it didn't increase it, definitely. Could have been worse, could have been a lot worse, but that is not going to be the answer to the problems. The problems in the country are economic problems. We need to build more businesses. They had to make it possible for people to start more business, to get access to venture capital, to capital, in other words, to startup capital, and killing the goose that is laying the golden eggs, like the 12J, the Section 12J companies. That is actually making it worse. But fortunately, government didn't increase the personal tax or the company tax, corporate tax, because as we know, government steal more than what they can make. So imagine how much they would have stolen then. So that is the big problem in South Africa, is the fact that corruption is not taken care of. As long as we have the corruption, it will be a bad idea to pay government a single cent of tax. Okay, I know what I'm saying now, this might be controversial, but in our club, our Wealth Masters Club, we still have a good system, even better than before, with our structures, how we structure our businesses, our companies, our trusts, and especially now with our offshore trust in Mauritius. We have ways that we can make tax 100% zero. The problem is, for me as a South African, and why I do not feel comfortable with that, although we can do that, we can make tax zero, that's not a problem. But it is not going to help the country. It is helping the individual. It is helping us as individuals not to waste our money on this useless government. But it is not helping the country. And as in South Africa, I want our country to be prosperous. If government rather came with something even better than 12J or improved 12J, so that we can rather feel comfortable to invest in the government, because that's what 12J is. 12J is also making your tax zero, I know that. But a lot of money is going to the economy, because it's the only way then with the 12J to make it zero. And to take that away, no, I'm still so disappointed I cannot even. Okay, no, sorry.
Yeah, I think if I also just want to add to that, if we look at what was done last year, where the thresholds for individuals were increased, allowing them to take money offshore every year. I think what they're achieving now is that they've now relaxed that a little bit last year. Now they've given the wealthy in South Africa extra incentive to take their money offshore. So I believe cash that otherwise would have been invested in our economy is now going out of the country, unfortunately.
That's right. Honestly, it's like they're kind of like forcing us to do something for ourselves. Because if they are not doing something for us and for the economy, then we have to do it ourselves. So yes,
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thanks, gents. I think another problem with our country is our internet connectivity. So apologies, I dropped off there for a second, but I'm back now. Kasi, jumping to you, you've been quite in the background there. government withdrew their proposal to raise 40 billion rand in additional tax revenue over the next 4 years. Now, do you think that this was a wise decision to withdraw, or do you think this might have a knock-on effect at a later stage? Because at the moment we're sitting with a deficit of about 213 billion rand, and I mean we don't see that getting any better in the next 4 years. So, what do you think on that note?
Damien, as I was listening to Kurt and Johannes now, I'm of the meaning that the lower the tax rates are, the more people will pay their tax. At this stage, the tax is so high in South Africa that people are taking their money offshore. They're making ways to pay zero tax. So, yes, they wanted to get more tax, and they decided against it. My problem with that is the less tax they get in, or the less money they get in at the end of the day, the more we have to go borrow at the World Bank, the higher the interest, or the bigger the interest portion is on that loan at the end of the day. And that's where the problem lies, because we can't even pay then the interest on our loans back. So yeah, it might hit us hard at the later stage. There were talks of 16% VAT. Luckily, they did not do it. Some people said they should have done it 2 years ago or 3 years ago, jump to 16% and get it over and done with. But yeah, as Kurt also said, we all know where our money is going. So somewhere along the line, this is going to hit us hard.
That's so true. And Cassie, there were also a couple of new increased taxes mentioned last night. For instance, an 8% increase on alcohol and cigarettes, and an additional 26 cents added to the fuel levy. So what does this mean for a regular South African? I know you mentioned that, with it being a lower rate, people might pay more, but, we've got all of these additionals. So the person on the street, how does this affect them, in their day-to-day lives?
Well, let's call it now sin tax. So if you like your wine and your cigarettes and whatever, you're going to pay. Unfortunately, that's always going to be there. But the added levy to the fuel, that's not just to the fuel at the end of the day. It's for your personal inflation. That's the problem. Because now the delivery cost of sugar gets higher. So your personal living cost is getting so much higher, and that's where it's hitting. And it's actually hitting the poor people the most.
Which is rather disappointing. I think that has been the biggest issue that we've had in South Africa recently. But Johannes, there was also talk about some changes or revised income tax brackets. Could you just talk us through that briefly?
Yeah, so all that was done basically in this budget speech was, as you would know, for individuals, the tax scale works on a sliding scale. So the higher your taxable income, the higher your tax goes. So what they've done is they've just lifted those brackets slightly to adjust for inflation, essentially, to try and keep you in the same real position that you otherwise would have been. They've pushed the brackets up by 5%. Now, the official, and I'm saying official almost in brackets, but the official inflation rate is sitting at about 4%. So technically, one can argue that they've given the taxpayer a 1% worth of relief in terms of the tax brackets and how they've lifted it. But I think we all know that the true inflation rate in South Africa is not 4%. If you go to Pick n Pay tomorrow and you go and purchase your week's groceries, it does not cost you 4% more than a year ago. It costs a lot more than that. So yes, it's nice, but to be honest, it didn't really do much for us in real terms. So in my opinion, that's a little bit of just kicking the can down the road and giving something that looks nice but doesn't really mean anything.
Sure. And now this might be a little bit of a controversial question, but there are currently a number of state-owned companies that are very heavily reliant on state funding. We talk about companies such as SA Express, Denel, Eskom, just to name a few. Now, government has put in guarantees to the tune of 580 billion rand for these entities. Do you feel government is doing a good thing by looking out for these companies and their employees? Or do you feel like they're letting down the large majority of South Africans by not better utilizing these funds for the poor or for those destitute as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Devin, the problem with the state-owned entities is not a lack of capital. Okay, it is at the moment because they stole so much. The problem is if you want to fix the problem of the state-owned companies, the ESCOMs and so on, then it is not a matter of giving them more money. That is not going to fix anything. You have to change the management of those companies. That is the problem. The problem is the management. And every time that they do change management, then it is just another crook at that point. It is just another cater. That is all. I don't think they are serious. I mean, these companies were all very successful companies, before Zuma, actually, old President Zuma, buggered up the country. So just make them successful again. You see, the problem was with the president, whether he is going to be guilty or not, the former president now, President Zuma, is that he started something in South Africa that cannot be fixed with more tax or throwing in more money. Because if the head is rotten, then everything down in that body will rot eventually also. And unfortunately, also, we had one of the worst presidents, President Zuma, whether he stole the money or not, a court still had to decide on that. But whether he did that or not, he actually managed this country into the ground. So throwing in more money is not going to solve the problem unless you can fix the management of those companies. And I don't even know whether that will work. My opinion is privatize them. Privatize all those companies, and then they can issue shares and a company can put in capital. That is the way that capital should be put into a company, not from government side. So no, I don't think anything that they did is actually exciting me. Actually, it is rather worrying to know that he is pouring so many billions into it again.
Some wise words there, Kurt. Now, Johannes, for those watching this evening who may be members of the Wealth Masters Club already and they've got trusts with Treasury Trust Services, what changes are there to trusts and the taxation on trust, if any?
Okay, so there were no changes on that, but something that I want to point out is the wealth tax that was spoken about. So what was mentioned is that SARS will, and they probably already have, but they will start collecting information from third parties, try and establish who are the wealthy people in South Africa, because they want to assess the feasibility of a wealth tax. And we've seen over many years now that has been the ethos behind a lot of the strategies and things that have been implemented. Take from the poor, or take from the rich to give to the poor without thinking of the consequences of that. So I think what that has brought forward again is the importance of structuring your estate properly. If you sit with all your assets in your personal capacity, SARS is already sitting with that information. You'll be seen as one of the wealthy people in South Africa, and you might become a target of wealth tax. So there's not a wealth tax at the moment, but they are looking into it strongly, and the Davis Tax Committee has advised it. So we will probably see that materializing in the next few years. So what this whole thing tells me is, look at your structures. Don't kick the can down the road as far as that is concerned. At least once a year, even more regularly, even once a quarter, I would advise. Sit down with your advisors, look at your structures and see whether your things are optimal and whether you are exposed to a risk like that by sitting with too many assets in your personal estate. You should really be sitting with no assets in a perfect world. That's what I took from that, Damien.
Johannes, sorry, Damien, if I can just jump in here quickly. A lot of people think they need to accumulate assets first and then do their structure planning. And that's the wrong thing. The younger you start with your structure, the better, because otherwise it's going to cost you tax along the line when you're older, or even then estate duty. So it's very important to know that the sooner you get your structure ready, the sooner you can create or accumulate your assets then.
Can I also
Yes.
say something about that, Damien?
Go for it.
Cassie, I agree with you so much. Because you see, the problem that what we experience is wealthy people come to us. They accumulated a lot of wealth in their personal names over the years, in their personal estates. And now they want to fix the problem. Oh, the problem can be fixed, but at a price. And the price is not what we charge you to fix the problem. The price is what government charges you in forms of tax. You know, for example, a simple example, you have a luxury house that belongs to you in your personal name, and now you want to put it in a trust. There's cost involved. There's tax involved there. So guys, especially the young people, we don't want the young people to leave the country. If I can do some magic, then I would have changed that drain brain completely that we have in this country. I want the young people to stay here. I still think South Africa is one of the best countries in the world to do business in. Listen carefully, to do business in, because of all the problems that we have. So this is an entrepreneur's paradise. There are so many broken things in this country. And if I start making a list of all the broken things, the roads, the Escoms, the power supply, so many things are broken, the water, so many things are broken. So obviously now people with alternative solutions, they are the people making money. So guys, it's just a matter of changing your attitude towards the country also. Then you will start see opportunities and possibilities that negative people will never see. So in spite of the fact that I might sound now negative here, I'm disappointed. That's what, and I'm disappointed in this government already a long, long time. So to add on to what Johannes also said there, make yourself poor. I'm the poorest person in this room. Definitely. I'm poorer than Cassie, poorer than Johannes, poorer than Damien. I have nothing, absolutely nothing. I sit here in a luxury house and do the presentation. It's not my house. I just have the right to live here, and I'm the only one deciding who lives here. I drive a luxury car. It's not my car, but I'm the only one deciding who drives that car. You see, that is the position that I'm talking about. That is the position that you have to be in a country like this. Guys, if you cannot put yourself in a position like that, then you will always be a victim. So get yourself into the position where you can benefit from the chaos, where you can make money out of the chaos, where you can accumulate assets out of the chaos. That is what you should do. And we do regular presentations on how to do it, because it is not something that you can just do like this. It's a process that you actually start, and it's not even very expensive, but you should do it. That is the point. So on Saturday, this coming Saturday, I really think people should be here. On Saturday, we do a webinar, a free webinar where we will go into more detail. Johannes will also be a presenter there. So guys, make sure, it's a short webinar. It's only, I think, 2 or 3 hours, but short webinar Saturday morning. And then we will go into more detail on how to safeguard yourself, how to make sure you cannot be taxed anymore, because I pay zero tax. And that's a fact. What I'm telling you now is a fact. I do not pay tax. And it's all legal, because one thing that South Africans must keep in mind is that tax evasion is a crime. So many people, when they feel they are in trouble financially, or they are disappointed in the government, or they're angry at the government, then they stop withholding tax. That's a crime. You will go to jail. So what we do, and what we will teach you and share with you and show you how we do it, is tax avoidance. Legal tax avoidance. It's a skill. And believe me, we are very skillful with this. We are already doing this very successfully for thousands of people since 1996. That was when it all started, the system that we are using. So on Saturday, for those of you who might be interested, we will go into the detail on how to be the best in South Africa.
Amazing. Thanks so much on that, Kurt. Like Kurt said, this is a metropolis for people who want to start businesses. And on that note, Cassie, there was a decision made to drop the corporate tax to 27%. Now, how is this going to affect businesses in the short and the long term?
Damien, if I take an example, America, we can't look at America and South Africa in the same sense, but they dropped their corporate tax from 35% to 21%, and it created a lot of jobs. So hopefully by doing this, and I mean the highest South Africa was, I think, was on 37%, also corporate tax, and that was not that long ago. So the lower the corporate tax, the more people will obviously start their companies, and the more people will actually pay tax. The lower the tax bracket, the best, the more taxes they're going to get. But yeah, I think short term, maybe not so much, but long term, yes, I think it will help. It's a percent at least, yeah.
Thanks, Cassie. Now, my final question for you. Obviously, we know now that the deficit has ballooned to about 14% of the GDP, and it's almost double the previous peak from 1993. And last year, Tito Mweni said he's going to forecast a deficit of 6.2%, which would have been the second highest ever. Now, touching on what you've said before, do you feel that this is a result of members of the public who are not paying their taxes where they should? Or do you feel that businesses and individuals are becoming a lot more tax savvy and they're only paying taxes where they need to pay, or they're using the right investment vehicles and tax savings initiatives such as trusts, which is now putting us in a position like this?
Yes, Damien, that's definitely the thing of this that is happening at the moment. Well, it's happening already for many years. As I said, since 1996, we are already helping people to pay as little tax as possible legally. And now we also have offshore trust. We set up the trust for free for our members. We are a club. We are an investors club. So our members get the trust for free. And many members are making use of these opportunities. So like, for example, a Mauritian trust, all the income in a Mauritian trust is 100% tax-free, especially for people working abroad and so on. That might be very suitable. There's no one shoe fits all. So that is why it is so important that you just sit with our consultants. And please don't see these things that we are talking about here on a webinar like this as financial advice. It is not financial advice. We are talking in general. The solution will differ from person to person. But the point isn't to answer you, Damien, is many people, thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, are beginning to make use of these solutions that we are presenting to them. So yes, the deficit will grow bigger. What government needs to do is to stimulate the economy. And by canceling 12J, you see I'm back on 12J again. I'm so annoyed with that. But by canceling 12J, they are definitely not going to stimulate the economy. And dropping the corporate tax with 2 percentage points or something like that. How much was it, Johannes? 2 points?
Just one.
1 point. 1 point. That is going to do nothing to this economy. Absolutely nothing. We should stop money from flowing out of the country. And if government ever wants to increase taxes, then they should rather look at something like VAT and so on. That is something that we even can do nothing about. As from a tax avoidance point of view, we don't do that. Everybody pays that. So there are many taxes. Although I say we pay zero tax, I'm talking about income tax and profit tax and capital gains tax. So that is the kind of tax that I'm talking about. Because many people think, how will I get out of the VAT, and how will I get out of the fuel levies, and how will I get out of estate duties and so on. That's not what I'm talking about. So it is not that government will not get any tax anymore, but they can get so much more if they can just stop the money from flowing out of the country. And the only way to do that is to stop that plug, to stop that hole. And they are not stopping it. But every budget speech, they are not stopping it. And every time I hope they will do something to stop it, because we need the money in the country.
Fantastic. And some sobering thoughts there that we've spoken about this evening. And just touching again on the 12J, Johannes, obviously the sunset clause comes in June. What does it mean for people who are looking to invest now or haven't had the opportunity to invest? What are the timelines in place?
Okay, so we've basically have 2 tax years left where you can claim this benefit. We're very close to the end of the 2021 tax year now, which ends on Sunday, 28th February. So that's the one window. And the second year that you can then still claim an S12J deduction for is for the 2022 tax year. But where in the past, the norm was that, and it makes sense because everybody will hold on to cash as long as they can. So typically investments were made close to the end of the tax year because you just need to make the investment within at some point in the tax year to qualify for the deduction. What will happen now in the 2022 tax year is you will have to make your investment before 30 or on or before 30 June 2021. So you can still get the benefit for the next tax year, but you need to do it sooner in the year. And then after the year after that, 2023 onwards, it's not going to be available. So the funds that have been established, they obviously continue as per normal, but after 30 June, new capital raised for that, the tax deduction will not be available to new investors. So everybody that is in, they've gotten on the train in time. They didn't miss the train, but it's the guys that will come on after 30 June that unfortunately will miss that opportunity.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Johannes. Now, just gents, in closing, Cassie, your closing thoughts on the budget speech and plans for the future?
Well, my thoughts basically is like Kurt said, money is leaving the country. So the more money we can keep in the country, the better, obviously. And yeah, plan your structures correctly, because otherwise somewhere along the line, you're going to pay unnecessary tax, which is not necessary. Thanks, Damien.
Thanks so much, Cassie. Johannes, your closing thoughts for tonight?
Yeah, a closing thought, something that Kurt mentioned that I absolutely agree with in terms of the solution for the SOEs being the privatization. I think a very good example of that is what happened now to the detriment of Western Province Rugby and to the benefit of Sharks Rugby, with MVM Holdings, with the deal falling flat with Western Province Rugby and them concluding a deal with the Sharks. We've already seen a bit of player migration towards them, and I'm fairly certain that within the next 2 to 3 years, the Sharks are going to be a world powerhouse in rugby. And it's because there is private equity involved. It's guys, rugby is a business. It's guys that know how to do business that put the equity there, and they're going to look after that equity if they've put it in there. That's why privatizing the SOEs would have been a brilliant solution. I mean, just to go back to the 12J one more time, the industry is 11 billion rand large. So let's say the tax savings on that, let's work on an average of 40%. So let's say about 5 billion rands worth of tax revenue was now lost in the short term to SARS. Eskom and SAA are going to eat up a lot more than that. And just to make a simple decision like that, get private equity involved in those firms, they would have been the easy solution. But as Kurt mentioned, with all these problems, there pops up a lot of solutions. That's why this country is an awesome place to stay, and there will be many solutions for these things, and it will be brought forward by the private sector. It's sometimes a good thing that government is so incompetent. It leaves us in the private sector with the opportunity to add the value and to correct some of these things.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, I disagree. And Kurt, in closing, your final thoughts.
Okay, guys, I think you should enjoy life. Stop worrying about everything. Live the life. This is still the land of opportunity. I'm so positive about South Africa. So what we teach people, don't forget, attend my webinar, and then you will learn how to invest in South Africa. It is not that you do it by way of tax. We do it by a complete different way. Imagine, take this scenario. You make R1 million profit, and if you're not going to do anything about it, not invest it in a 12J or put it in the right trust structures, you are going to pay like about 450,000 in tax on it. That 450,000, the biggest portion of that tax will be stolen eventually by the corrupt government officials. By not paying the tax in a legal way, by avoiding it in a legal way, you invest the money somewhere in South Africa. So I'm not really advocating or promoting the movement of money out of the country. All that I say is get out of that tax and leave it in the country, because where you invested the money, whether you invest it in now on the stock market in South Africa, it is going to work somewhere. The capital is going to work somewhere. Just make sure you invest it in the right places. So that is also something that we have advisors that can advise you where to invest and where not to invest. And then it is just a pleasure to live in this country. It is like living in Mauritius. I can, and we will also help you to create multiple streams of income. South Africa is still the best. Thank you, Damien.
Fantastic. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time this evening to join us and to talk a little bit more about the budget speech and what that means for regular South Africans. Now, as Kurt mentioned, if you want to learn a little bit more or find out how we suggest you do things, join us on Saturday for a free webinar from 9 o'clock in the morning. The only catch is you have to register for the webinar. To do that, you simply go to www.wealthmastersclub.com, and on the top right hand, there's a little banner there. Click on that to register. You will get all the details of how to tune in on Saturday, and we will see you there from 9 o'clock. And as I mentioned, it is free, so don't miss out. We look forward to seeing you guys there. We'll see you on Saturday. Bye-bye.